Are your boundaries backfiring or fizzling out? Today I will clarify how and when to use healthy relationship boundaries so you can stop the damage while keeping your marriage strong. If things get bad enough in marriage, we can feel like we are walking on eggshells. We can become resentful and carry that resentment throughout the day, which robs us of any feelings of joy and makes a chore of loving our spouse. It shouldn't be that way, and it doesn't have to be. In marriages where people are very well matched, relating seems almost effortless. Of course, everyone has their moods, and it is better to get a little distance at those times. But in marriages where there is significant mismatch, a little distance isn't going to be enough. The area of mismatch would be like sand in the gears of the relationship. At first, everything still works all right, but as time goes by, that little bit of sand will wear away at love and connection. Eventually, the emotional connection will be completely gone. If that is happening in your marriage, what is needed are steps to take care of those differences and restore your marriage to maximum love and full connection potential. There are three major steps for restoring marriages in which a spouse has mismatching, damaging behavior. With few exceptions, they need to be done in order. The relationship restoring steps are: 1. Stopping our own damage, which is overcoming our neediness. 2. Building a closer connection, which means validation and being desirable. And 3. Stopping our spouse's damage, and this is where boundaries come in. Before we go further, you need to know one important exception to taking these three steps in this order. Because safety is a prerequisite for relationship building, boundaries for keeping people safe have to come before other steps. If you are being physically abused, get help and prevent your spouse's ability to continue to be abusive as a first step. Visit thehotline.org for guidance. Hopefully that's not your situation, in which case you can take a gentler and more gradual approach. Many people don't do well with boundaries because they start with them in a poorly connected relationship. Boundaries work best in an otherwise good relationship. If that's not your situation and you are not being abused, then start with step 1. You'll get a lot of improvement with very little conflict, if any. So let's talk about step 1, which is stopping your own damage. Remove from your interactions everything that makes your relationship unnecessarily unpleasant for your spouse. Abrasive language, selfishness, criticism, and sometimes just talking too darn much can make interacting with us unpleasant. Realize that whatever a friend or acquaintance would not like about you, your spouse won't like about you either. I'm sure you would agree the same is true about your spouse's behavior toward you. The thing to ask yourself is there anything about the way I treat my spouse that is very reasonable for him or her not to like? It takes humility to honestly ask yourself that, and it takes discipline to change. God will be happy to help you if you include Him in the process. My book, Overcome Neediness and Get the Love You Want, has helped many people to make such changes too. When you have thoroughly removed all those prickly parts of yourself that make your spouse rightly uncomfortable, it will make it easier for your spouse to live with you. You'll get along better, but your spouse won't necessarily desire you more. For that, you have to make sure you are being a desirable spouse. Right now, you might be wondering why you need to change if your spouse is the one who has all the bad behavior. It's because the more your spouse likes you, the more effective your boundaries will be when you get to that step. Without that, your boundaries may be just the straw that broke the camel's back and drive your spouse away. On the other hand, if your relationship is already good, then skip to step 3. Otherwise, do the building first. Step 2, building a closer emotional connection. We need to go on to step 2 to be more desirable to our spouse. That means that we become interesting for our spouse to talk to, pleasant to do things with. We make our spouse feel interesting, capable, and valued, and we make our spouse feel loved. Didn't you do that when you were first dating your spouse? And look how well it worked. He or she wanted to keep you and you only for the rest of his or her life. You must have done pretty darn well. It's hard to imagine any relationship working where value-adding elements are not present. If you don't have the skills for pleasant talking or enjoyable interaction, then you can learn. You may have never learned them, but they are not hard to learn. I have a social skills quiz on my website you can use to check your skill level. Make sure you don't unrealistically believe that being nice will fix everything. Supposing you have taken care of the really rough spots in your character and interact with your spouse in an enjoyable way, that is no guarantee that you'll get as good as you give. That's only going to happen in a well-matched marriage which is maintained with daily one-on-one time, weekly dates, and enjoyable sex. If you were there, you wouldn't be here. So let's go on to step 3. Step 3, which is ending your spouse's damaging behavior. Despite all of your self-improvement, your spouse may still have some unacceptable behaviors. You've got to do something different than just be nice, or you will soon become resentful and those bad behaviors will come out again. That eventually would make you stop caring and stop trying. Instead of stopping your nice behavior or getting negative, this is the proper time for boundaries. To be clear, I'm not talking about rules. Boundaries are not rules. People can break your rules. You'll never fix your marriage by making rules. Boundaries are the actions you take or don't take in order to prevent harm, end harm, and create the conditions for a better relationship. Your spouse can't break or violate your boundaries because they are completely under your control. Let me give you some examples of boundaries in relationships. Refusing to argue, no matter what. Not having sex with your spouse if he or she won't spend quality time with you. Walking away immediately if your spouse is verbally abusive. Going out with friends even if your spouse does not want you to. Refusing to live with your spouse if he or she has an untreated addiction. Notice that in each example, the boundary is not something you tell your spouse he or she can't do. That would be a rule that could be easily defied. Each boundary is an action or inaction which is under your control. If I have a boundary that I will walk away from you whenever you shout at me, whether you shout or not is still your choice. I can't stop you, but I can walk away, and it will make you upset, but you are not likely to continue to shout at me if our relationship is otherwise good. You will feel better about using boundaries when you keep these characteristics of boundaries in mind. They allow your spouse the freedom to choose his or her behavior. They are used to protect you, your spouse, and your relationship. And they are part of the duty of being a loving spouse. Your spouse will feel like your boundaries are ultimatums or punishment, which indeed they are. So don't debate it. Don't get hung up on words. Boundaries can be as simple as ending conversations every time you are interrupted. There's no need to discuss the boundary, though a little warning ahead of time is helpful if your spouse would not realize why you were ending the conversation. You can do this by choosing a quiet moment when things are going well and say something like this. John, I really look forward to talking to you, but I have a bad habit of letting you interrupt me, so I get resentful. I'm going to work on that by ending the conversation whenever you interrupt. I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. It's important that you own the problem. The more you own the problem, the more powerful you will become. The more you blame, the more you will feel like a victim. I don't help my clients to blame their spouses. Instead, I help them to take responsibility for doing something about the relationship. You stop being a victim the moment you realize that you can do something about the problem. It's not necessary to even mention what you will do if your action is appropriate and obvious. If your spouse shouts at you and you walk away as soon as he or she does, likely that boundary will be understood. If you do that consistently, your spouse will come to expect it and thus learn to self-monitor. This brings me to another point. Don't warn once the behavior occurs. If you warn your spouse that you are about to use a boundary, your spouse will not self-monitor and your boundary won't create a bitter habit for your spouse. Never say, "If you continue to interrupt, I will end this conversation." Or, "If you continue to shout, I will walk away." If you say things like that, your spouse will continue to do the behavior until you give that warning. When you have a boundary, simply use it at the first instance of the behavior you are targeting. If you let your spouse shout at you for a while or interrupt you for a while, or you only sometimes end the conversation, it's an altogether different thing. It's you teaching your spouse that it's okay to sometimes shout at you. The result is that sometimes he or she will. People do what we teach them they can do. Kids, spouses, employers, friends, or whoever, they all learn what they can and can't do with us. If you're going to use a boundary, use it everywhere. It won't do to drop your boundaries in public or at family gatherings. If you do, your spouse will learn that it is acceptable to do damaging things when in those situations. This means you need to care more about improving your marriage than what other people might think if you walk out of a restaurant, call a taxi to ride home on your own, or whatever you need to do. If you are around emotionally healthy people, they will actually respect your calm, controlled response to being treated badly. To be effective, boundaries need to be stated in advance if they will be misunderstood. Need to be applied immediately at the first instance of the target behavior. Need to happen every time the target behavior occurs. And need to happen regardless of where you are. Now, one thing you need to be aware of, and that is your spouse will get upset every time you use a boundary. And furthermore, that's okay. Whenever you use boundaries with your spouse, he or she will get upset. There is no way to give someone a consequence that they don't like and have them appreciate it. On the contrary, they won't like it at all. Probably they will be angry. When that happens, we must let them be angry, though not abusive. Some people never use boundaries because they don't like making their spouse upset. And some people are afraid if they make their spouse upset with boundaries that they will be rejected. Do you know who actually does not get rejected? Does not get rejected? The emotionally connected and loving spouse who has no tolerance for being mistreated. He or she gets both love and respect. People who fear rejection and allow their spouse or kids to do damaging things are the ones who get disrespect and rejection. God's boundaries are an expression of His love for us in that they are for our protection as well as to help us have a close relationship with Him. This is what the Bible means when it says that God disciplines those He loves. Did you know that logical boundaries are the best boundaries? Boundaries are best when they fit the behavior. For example, walking away from verbal abuse, not responding to nasty messages, refusing to wash clothes unless they are put in the hamper, putting left out materials in a bag and in the closet if they are not put away, refusing to have sex if your spouse isn't spending time with you otherwise, not riding in the car with your spouse if your spouse drives aggressively while impaired or treats you badly in the car. Separation or filing for divorce are appropriate boundaries for affairs and abuse. These boundaries will make sense to others even if your spouse doesn't think so. Now, you need to be careful not to overuse boundaries. No matter how well matched you and your spouse are, your spouse is always going to do some things that you don't like. Even if you were married to someone identical to you, there would still be some things you would not like about your spouse. Maybe many. Some differences we just have to tolerate. Even so, you can use some skills to make the differences easier to tolerate. What can you do to more easily live with differences which you dislike? Well, you can recognize that you also have faults, even if not the same ones as your spouse. Recognize that any spouse would do things you don't like. Accept that the behavior is not going to change. Be careful not to spend too much time with your spouse because familiarity breeds contempt. Have your own friends and activities. Thank God every day for good aspects of your spouse. Consider if you lost your spouse today, whether those things you don't like would really be all that important. Another thing you can do is to love your spouse and interact around the parts that you do like. Anyone who can't live with differences can't live with anyone. One more thing you should know, and that is that getting help can make boundaries much easier. Boundaries, when used correctly in an otherwise good relationship, are very effective. Unused, problems are perpetuated until all love fizzles out. Getting coaching can help you to avoid the pitfalls and help you with the practicalities of using boundaries to revive love and get respect. Sign up for my Difficult Partner coaching package and I will help you to custom design and implement the right boundaries for your marriage. The most loving thing you can do is to help your spouse to have a better relationship with you.